Okay, let's unpack this. I mean, if you just look at the statistics on distracted driving or even, the constant low-grade friction in relationships that so often leads to divorce, it's just so painfully obvious that we as humans, we have a really, really hard time just staying present. We're always either planning the next thing or, just exhausting ourselves going over the last thing.
The difficulty is,
Yeah.
well, it's the universal human condition, isn't it? But
Yeah.
the sources you share today, they explain this in really fascinating quantum and biological terms. So our mission in this deep dive is to analyze exactly why it's so challenging to break that habit of living in the past, and consequently, why changing these deeply ingrained behaviors can feel like, well, like you're fighting gravity.
And here's the part that I think is the most exciting, the real foundation of it all. In the present moment, all possible potentials exist simultaneously in the quantum field. So the core insight is that when you are truly present, when you can move beyond the clock and your surroundings, you also move beyond space and time. And you gain this ability to make any of those quantum potentials a reality.
That's the trade-off. It's a high-stakes trade-off we're making every single moment of every day. If we're present, a totally new future is possible. But if we're stuck in the past, no new potentials can exist for us. Our future just becomes this predictable, inevitable repeat of our history.
Yeah.
And the main reason we fall into that trap, we are quite literally chemically addicted to our own past.
That is such a powerful and honestly unsettling idea that we're not just mentally attached to yesterday, but our bodies are actually chemically hooked on our familiar emotions.
Oh, absolutely. Think about when someone decides to make a huge life change. Maybe stop drinking or start exercising or shift a toxic mindset. The reaction, the physical and emotional reaction, is often identical to an addict in withdrawal. The body has been so deeply conditioned by past events that it actually ceased to re-experience the chemical cocktail of that original incident. This conditioning is so complete that the body has, in effect, become the subconscious mind.
Wait, okay, so if the body is running the show, what percentage of my daily reality is actually run by me, the conscious me, and what percentage is this autonomous body mind?
That's the fundamental question, right?
Yeah.
Our conscious mind loves to think it's in charge. But these sources suggest that, more often than not, the body has taken over and is thinking on its own, autonomically. We should probably detail the step-by-step mechanism of how we even get to this point, how we manage to literally memorize an emotion. It all starts with an experience that has a strong emotional charge. Then, a conscious thought occurs about that past event, and that thought immediately becomes a memory. And that memory, just by thinking it, reflexively reproduces the emotion from the original experience. If you do that repeatedly, say you dwell on some injustice every single day for months.
Okay, so the thought, the memory, and the feeling all just kind of merge into one thing.
Exactly. They fuse together. And once that happens, the emotion itself is memorized. Living in the past isn't a conscious choice anymore. It's not even a mood. It becomes a totally subconscious process.
Which brings us back to that autopilot system analogy you mentioned. The subconscious is all the stuff happening below our awareness, breathing, heartbeat, digestion, all the autonomic things.
Right. And when we memorize an emotion, we're basically handing control of our emotional state over to that powerful automatic system.
It's like having these complex programs just running constantly in the background of your computer. They control everything, but you don't have to consciously click run. You might not even remember installing the program in the first place.
And they are incredibly efficient programs.
Yeah, and here's the example that really shows how fast the system gets installed. Imagine losing a favorite pet when you were young, very unexpectedly. Every sensory detail of that exact moment, the sounds, the smells, the light in the room, is, as the source says, burned into the brain. That's a huge emotional charge.
And that trauma, it instantly creates these unconscious, memorized emotional responses. Grief, sadness, maybe anger, they're all chemically ready to be triggered by something in the environment. It could be seeing a similar dog 10 years from now, or just walking down a certain street.
Right. And all it takes is one little stray thought or some subtle sensory cue to activate that entire grief program. The program just runs. And before you can even consciously figure out what's happening, your body is chemically and physiologically right back in that state. It feels like your body has hijacked your mind. You feel totally out of control.
This is the exact connection to classical conditioning. It shows these physiological changes are completely subconscious. We all know Pavlov's dogs salivated when they heard the bell because their bodies had a conditioned autonomic response.
So it's the same process in us, but instead of salivating, it's a flood of stress hormones or grief chemicals.
Precisely. In that moment, Your conscious mind might be in the present, trying to order a coffee.
Hmm.
But your subconscious body-mind is living completely in the past, reacting to a coffee shop as if it were that original trauma from 10 years ago.
Wow. And that's why change is so hard. We're biologically wired for that repetition, and it keeps dragging us back.
That cascade of subconscious chemical reactions changes you physiologically. It's a powerful force.
And we should probably emphasize, this isn't just for major life-altering trauma. The sources remind us the brain works purely by repetition, so even minor irritating things can set off this whole sequence.
Absolutely. We can go from a huge trauma to the tiny daily frustrations. Sitting in traffic, finding your coffee shop is out of your usual order, or getting, intensely annoyed when someone takes your favorite parking spot. We are constantly reenacting these little frustrations from our past.
And because of that, someone at work sees you and asks, "What's wrong? You seem off today."
Yeah.
And you just say, "Oh, I'm just in a bad mood. I'll get over it." But according to this analysis, you don't just get over it, you're in a chemical state.
You are. A mood is a chemical state of being. It's really just an expression of a prolonged emotional reaction. When an emotion hits, the chemicals released don't just disappear instantly, their effect lingers. And this lingering time is what the sources call the refractory period.
Okay, the refractory period. And the length of that period is what determines the state you're in. So if I'm snappy all afternoon because I spilled coffee at 8 in the morning, that's me in a low-grade refractory period. Let's walk up that emotional ladder. From the initial reaction to what ends up being our identity.
Okay, so we start with a quick, short-lived emotional reaction. If the refractory period lasts for hours, maybe a couple of days, that's when we call it a mood. That's the funk you're trying to shake off. Now, if that refractory period extends for weeks, even months, you're now showing a temperament, a habitual expression of that emotion. This is when certain things become guaranteed triggers for you. You see a certain person and your blood boils for 3 days. You hear your boss's tone and it's like nails on a chalkboard every single time.
And what happens if that emotional refractory period just keeps going for months or even years?
If the chemical effects last that long, it solidifies into a full-fledged personality trait. That's when other people start describing you consistently as bitter or resentful, angry, or judgmental.
So our personality traits are often just our past memorized emotions running on a loop for decades.
Yeah, that's the crucial insight. To really change your personality, you have to break that chemical addiction to those emotions and get out of the past.
But there's a paradox here, because the sources say we don't just get stuck in the past. If we're not looking backward, we often get stuck living in a predictable future. A future that is just, well, it's based on memories of the past. It's another clever way to miss the now.
It is the ultimate trick, isn't it? We train the body to be the mind by living in this predictable future. Now, the good news is this conditioning can be beneficial. We see that with the example of the daughter who wanted a new job. She focused on her desired outcome so clearly that she started to generate the emotion of her success before it even happened.
She was feeling the excitement and the freedom of that summer job back in March.
Exactly. And her body responded as if the event were already happening. She was broadcasting a news signal into the world. But the negative path is so much more common, and it's dangerous. We anticipate the worst-case scenario constantly. Take the classic fear of public speaking. You have a talk in 2 weeks, but you're dreading it because of a bad experience years ago. You start thinking about it, envisioning yourself stammering, the audience judging you.
And the body is listening to that mental rehearsal.
Yeah.
I know that feeling. The shoulders start tensing up, your heart rate climbs, maybe you start to feel that clammy sweat, all while you're just sitting safely at your desk.
Right. Your body starts to respond now as if that future catastrophe is happening in reality. The body literally does not know the difference between the actual event and your mental rehearsal of it. So you get caught in this obsession, and your mind and body are polarized between the past failure and the future dread of repeating it. You completely deny any possibility of a new outcome.
That explains the big scary moments, but I think the most universal example is just the daily routine, the humdrum. Waking up, feeding the dog at 7 a.m., making tea, brushing your teeth the same way every day. It's an energy-saving autopilot, but what's the cost?
The cost is the present moment. Decades of these unconscious actions train the body to just look forward to a known, boring destiny. And this allows the conscious mind to just go to sleep behind the wheel. It's actually alarming to think that decades can go by with the mind completely checked out.
So we're either chemically addicted to the past or mentally obsessed with a future based on that past. And if we just alternate between those two states, we stay stuck.
Look at the coworker BBQ example.
Yeah.
You expect a miserable time because of past awkward interactions. You go in with that attitude, and what happens? You get a parking ticket, someone spills beer on you, the food's raw. It's a perfect horror show.
Because you created it. You were alternating between living in the past and obsessing about an unwanted future, and you just made more of the
You
same.
did.
Which brings us back to the biggest question, right? If staying present gives you access to the entire quantum field of possibility, why would you choose to live in the past or a future based on the past? Why would you want to create the same reality over and over?
That intentional contraction of possibility is exactly what is happening. The goal, the real action required for change, is to mentally alter the physical makeup of your brain and body ahead of any desired experience.
So you have to start by broadcasting a new emotional frequency.
Precisely. Instead of obsessing over that past-based future, instead of running that program of fear, you have to intentionally obsess about a new desired experience that you haven't embraced emotionally yet. You literally have to live in that potential new future right now.
Like the daughter. She was intentionally broadcasting the elevated emotions of success and freedom into the quantum field before the job was even a sure thing. She was projecting the feeling.
She was. She was intentionally causing her body to accept those elevated emotions of that new outcome in the present moment. That is the mechanism for change. By generating that new emotion, joy, gratitude, freedom, you are intentionally collapsing a potential outcome. You're saying, this is the reality I'm choosing.
Okay, so that skill, the ability to partner your mind and body to accept a new emotional state, that brings us to the last big obstacle from the sources, the barriers we have to overcome.
The ultimate barrier to real lasting change is our attachment to what they call the big three: our environment, our body, and time. As long as we think and feel equal to those three things, we are bound by them. The first goal in any real transformation is to learn to think and feel greater than your environment, your body, and time.
And that sounds, well, it sounds very spiritual, like something from monks and mystics. But we've all had moments of this, right? We just call it being in the flow.
Yeah.
That state where your awareness of your surroundings, your body's needs, and even time just completely disappears.
That's it exactly. And these moments fall into the category of ordinary altered states. They're mundane, but they are just as vital as the grand peak experiences. They give you tangible proof that transcending the big three is not only possible, but accessible to everyone.
The sources use the example of writing. You sit down, and at first you're thinking about your travel schedule, how hungry you are, the stiffness in your neck. That's the big three in action: your environment, your body, and time.
But then, if the writing is going well, the words start to flow, the usual distractions just vanish, the stiffness is ignored, the hunger disappears, you transcend your body and your environment, and then you look up, and an hour has gone by in what felt like an instant. You transcended time.
I know that feeling too. When I'm deep into coding a really complex problem, you suddenly realize the room is freezing, you haven't moved in 90 minutes, and the sun has set. You just ignored your environment, your body, and the clock completely.
And you feel amazingly refreshed afterward, because for a moment you actually succeeded in losing your mind and creating a new one. These flow states prove that transcending the big three is a repeatable skill. It means you can practice feeling a new future into existence, starting today.
So the core summary is clear. Our bodies are running these subconscious programs rooted in past emotions, which just ensures a predictable future. The key to freedom is breaking that emotional addiction and intentionally conditioning the body to feel a new desired future. Now, in the present moment, the only place where possibility exists.
And that ability to transcend time, to work toward changing your state of being, that's a skill. It's available to everyone. What some people might see as miracles are often just individuals who have intentionally partnered their body and mind toward a better destiny through intentional repetition of a new emotion.
Which leaves a final thought for all of you to chew on. If consistent repetition and association created your current personality, which is rooted in your past emotions, what new emotional repetition will you intentionally use today to create the new one?